Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 307 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens are still a thing. I am Brian Goulet here at gouletpens.com. And today I'm going to be talking about what to do with old ink cartridges. Can you still use them? Are they going to be good, bad, otherwise? I'll tell you. Let's see here, how to seal off refilled ink cartridges so you can kind of refill them and save them up later. Is that even possible? I don't know. We're going to find out. What's up with the new LAMY petrol ink and how's it compare to the old one? If we're expecting to see erasable fountain pen ink anytime soon, and I'll be summoning all of our dragon-themed products, with my powers, and I'll share my thoughts on considering a pre-tariff sale or not. That should be fun. Not to mention fun facts about dragons, especially the Komodo dragon right there at the end. So should be fun, and I'll start it off with some feedback. All right, so technically before we have feedback, I should say I'm a little under the weather. I'm not sure if it's the weather, because the pollen has been just stupid around here. And I worked outside a bunch this weekend. And I'm definitely feeling it a bit. Or maybe I have a bug of some kind. I'm not sure. It's so hard because it's like, I'm kind of run down, a little bit achy, got a little throat scratchiness, sort of a headache. I'm like, all of these things can be symptoms of like 90 different things. That's okay. I'm not like laid out, but I'm definitely like, okay, I'm not 100%. But either way, I still wanted to get Q&A done. So here I am doing that. Also, I can be sort of quarantined off from everybody else as I shoot Q&A. So if I happen to cough a little bit or seem a little bit maybe run down or tired, that's why. Not because of life, but just illness. All right, now let's get into feedback, okay? So Paul McHugh says, I have found refilling cartridges to be more than acceptable for many pens, particularly Japanese pens. But filling the cartridge, then putting it on the feed drains the cartridge. My trick is to prime the feed first, then put the cartridge on. So yeah, we've been talking for like weeks about refilling ink cartridges. Y'all just really love doing that, more than I remember that coming up in the past. And I have more to talk about today too. This is a really smart idea. Yeah, because especially if you have like your typical standard international cartridge, the little short one, holds about a 0.5 mil of ink, right? And so if you are putting that through your feed, like a dry feed, and you're squeezing ink down in there, you're going to use like more than half of the cartridge up just filling that feed. It depends on the pen, because different feeds hold different amounts. But there's a good portion of it that will be drained just by doing that. So that's a smart idea. You can prime it. Some pens you can prime it with your ink syringe, like you prime the feed directly, or you can just prime it with the cartridge and then just refill the cartridge and then, sort of top it off and then put it on there. So either way, it's a good way to do it. If you're putting a cartridge on a pen that already has ink in it, you should be okay, unless it's like completely dried up in the pen. But yeah, anyway, so smart idea. Truth Above Opinion says, I think a great topic is different pen body materials, patterns and how they are made, which materials last longest. For example, ebonite and rubber do not like many of ammonia-based pen cleaners, and go in depth to different artisan styles, rarity, technique, cultural importance, and materials. I've been thinking about this recently. Definitely the materials questions, because when it comes to like plastic versus resin, what are the different types of resins and plastics and things like that? What about acrylic? What about celluloid? What about, all these different versions of celluloid? So I've been thinking about putting that together. I don't, I'm not like a scientist or anything like that, but I've been around the industry for a while, and I feel like it's like a good blog post, like a good referenceable thing, which I'm going to write that out. I might as well make it to a video. So it'll take a little bit of work to put that together and make sure that I'm like doing it accurately. So I'm thinking about it though. I'm thinking about that a lot. As far as the other things like rarity and cultural importance and stuff like that, I have no idea. I'm probably out of my depth there. Especially cultural importance. I'm like, today, nothing really has cultural importance because fountain pens are so niche, so small, but they probably had more back in the day. But I'm not a vintage guy, so I really am not the authority on that. So I might stick to what I know. But still, I appreciate the suggestion. All right, Paul Drexel, 1501 says, if you do red or blue ink, I think referring to ink showdowns, can you please segment it? There is a world of difference in navy blue versus very light blue, or crimson versus salmon red. I agree. I think, if I'm going to do ink showdowns, I think I'm going to try to keep it a fairly narrow range. But, you know, we've gotten questions about this on our website, like the filtering down on our website. The tough part about doing that, it's already kind of tough because some things bleed over to different colors. Like, you know, just trying to separate turquoise and teal out from blue, that's tough. And if ever we're not sure, we feel like it straddles both, we'll put it in both places. But if you're trying to separate out, you know, like within blues even more, you would end up with a lot of those that fall in the middle and you end up kind of putting them in both. And then you got a lot of overlap and I don't know. So it gets really tough and no one like tells us where the line is. We have to just use our judgment. So I don't know. As far as like, you know, the website stuff goes, probably won't be able to do that too much more, though we can think about it. I've talked to Rachel and hashtag it's complicated, but and then it's like when there's so many different filters, then it's like, then it can get kind of annoying too. But yeah, for definitely doing ink showdowns and stuff, I'm going to plan on keeping it somewhat of a narrow range, unless I have something like by property or by use case or something like that. So yeah, I appreciate the suggestion. And then Lucky Bin 1101 says, I remember a pencast where you recommended inks for teachers that were not the typical something's wrong here red. Ranking inks for function or occupation uses would be a good application for your well-honed objectivity. Yeah, I appreciate that. A little tongue-in-cheek there, I'm sure. This is an interesting idea. Yeah, I mean, certainly I've thought about like for teachers and then like safe for work, you know. I don't know really what other occupational ones there would be, but I'm open to that. I mean, I know in a lot of like government settings or like legal settings, it has to be either like blue or black or maybe blue-black, but that could kind of fall into like the work appropriate ones. I don't know. And we've already done a black and we've already done a blue-black showdown. So would we do a legal one that's like blues and blacks? I don't know. Could be interesting. So I like the idea. I'll give it some thought. If y'all have any ideas for other like occupational ink color demarcations, let me know. I don't know, because I've never really had a real job. I've only ever done Goulet pens. And here it's obviously not your typical workplace when it comes to using fountain pen ink. So anyway, that's it for feedback. Let's talk about some new stuff. All right, first off, we have the Monteverde Illusia Gel Rollerball. I feel like I've talked about this before. I don't know. But either way, maybe we're restocking it. Not 100% sure. Either way, it's a rollerball, which is, you know, fine. It's a rollerball. It's a good rollerball though. And it's kind of neat what you can do with the pen. I don't think I have one, but we'll show a picture. It's kind of cool because you can like twist it and it shows colors, which is kind of cool. But anyway, you can check that out. It's $22.40, which is kind of cool. May go up in price with the tariffs, not sure. Let's see here. What else we got? Private Reserve Kickstart My Heart. So this is a vibrant red ink, nice deep color. It looks really good. Limited edition though, only 1,000 bottles of this were made from Private Reserve. It's gonna be 60 mil, 2 ounces. So that's a pretty good amount of ink for $20. So for the volume, not bad, not bad if you like red inks. So check that one out. I'm not sure how long we'll have it around. Honestly, I don't even remember exactly how much we're getting. So if you are interested in that, I would kind of get on it because I don't think it's gonna be around all that long. And then we have another ink, Ferris Wheel Press Whispers of Twilight. This is a red purple hue scattered with some silver shimmer in it. So that looks kind of nice. Part of the Fairy Tales collection. And it's got that like cute little round globy bottle, which looks cool. 20 ml bottle for $20. So there you go. So you can get 20 mils of that or you can get 60 mils of Kickstart My Heart. Not that they're exactly the same, but you know what I mean. And then also on the ink front, I guess we got a lot of ink right now. Diamine Forever inks. So you may or may not have heard of these. It's, I think, 16 colors. It's like a whole new line of Diamine inks that are waterproof, light, resistant, and permanent. So that's kind of interesting. Sort of like the De Atramentis document inks, kind of in that category. So truth be told, we were supposed to get it the end of last week. Our shipment didn't arrive. So I've not actually used these yet. I'm recording this at the end of Monday. I don't know if they've arrived yet today. If they have, I haven't got my hands on them. So I'm sort of preemptively talking about these, but we should have them photographed and stuff like that. Gotten a chance to play with them a little bit by the end of the week. So maybe I'll talk about them next week if y'all care. So yeah, anyway, should be kind of interesting. A bunch of different colors. It's a whole bunch. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to compare them to the De Atramentis documents. So $20 for a 50 ml bottle of that, which is not bad. Not too bad price-wise. We'll samples as well for $2.25. So you can check those out. Got a new notebook, a traveler's notebook. They do these like limited edition releases. I don't know if they've done it every year, but they've done one this year. So this is called Love and Trip, and it's like a deep red, which is kind of interesting. You don't see a lot of deep red leather notebooks. So that's kind of neat. So there's passport size and the regular size. And I'm a big fan. I use the traveler's notebook all the time. I use the regular size one mostly, but I have used the passport one. I carried that for a number of years back when we first picked up the brand. So I've used both, and they hold up really well, and I like them a lot. So you can check those out. I don't know how long they'll be around. In the past, with these limited editions, on the traveler side of things, sometimes they're here for like a couple of days. Other times it's a couple of months. I don't know, but I don't expect them to be around all that long. So that's kind of thing that you can check it out if you're interested. You're looking at $60 or $72 depending on the size. And then we have a new pen from TWSBI, a pen that we talk about all the time here, which is the TWSBI Precision. You may not have remembered that pen existed, but it's a pen that maybe doesn't look like a TWSBI so much at first glance, because it's not a clear demonstrator pen. It's a metal pen though. It's got an ink window. Really solid pen. Like it does write really well, and I like the pen overall. So, but they've come out with that one kind of brushed metal color. Never done anything different with it. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it's been 7-8 years probably. I don't know. It's been a while. But they're doing a new color, Gemini Blue, which is kind of cool. It looks like, it's kind of like a weathered color a little bit. Like the edges are like not the blue. It's like a lighter kind of metal color or something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen it in my hand yet, but I'm excited for it. So that should be launching when this video comes out on Friday. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that one's going to be $80, which I think is the existing price of the other one. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's it. It's piston filler too. Yeah. All right. And then last but not least, I have Erasable notebooks, which I actually want to show you a little bit because these are interesting because they are coming from the same company that does Tomoe River. Now, it's not the original company that did Tomoe River. They sold a couple of years ago, I think. But I believe the process, formula, whatever, hasn't changed very much. We haven't seen a drastic change between the old stuff and the new stuff, even though it did change manufacturers. But this is coming from the same company that does it. It's the Sake Technical Paper Company. So I have a few different things. These are A5 size loose sheets, and then there's one notebook. So we have, these are all white paper. They are blank. What do I have here? I have a blank one. I have a dot loose sheet. Both of those A5. That's $10 for those. For how many sheets? 100 sheets. So there's that. And then there's a bound notebook, which actually is really good. I'm zoomed in super far. Let me show you what's going on. So this is dot. It is stitch and glued binding with a cloth. So it's going to be pretty sturdy. Very minimalist, very Japanese, right? Lays super duper flat. And yeah, if you can see the binding on there, it's like crazy flat. Like, whoa, that's intense. So no staples or anything to get in your way. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. 5mm dot reeling that you're all familiar with. And the dots are not like in your face. They're pretty subtle. I know the dots, really make a difference. They're like a light gray color, maybe with a teeny hint of blue on them. So yeah, this is going to be $15 for this notebook, and this is 160 pages, so 80 sheets. So it is a little more money, obviously, to get the bound one instead of the loose sheets. And then just because you're probably curious, I didn't do like a full-on review or anything like that, but I did grab some of the pens and the ink that I had on my desk just to see like, okay, how is this going to compare to Tomoe? So my experience is that, this is going to be thicker than the 52-gram Tomoe stuff we have. We used to have a 68-gram Tomoe, which I think we still have in some of our notebooks maybe, but so this is a little thicker than that even. which is really nice. I actually like it a lot. It feels more like almost like a rodeo type paper. It feels more like conventional paper. It's not as crinkly. Even when I put down the swab here, it crinkled up just a tiny bit, but it kind of just seems like a normal sheet of paper. It repels the ink really well though. So, you know, here on Emerald of Chivor, I get really good shimmer on it. I get, you know, the red sheen a little bit there too. I got really good shading, you know, surprise, surprise. Basically all the inks I have laying around my desk have blue ink in them. I didn't mean to do that, but that's just how it happened. Pretty good color shading on all these too. And the thing I like about it, it's not quite as smooth as traditional Tomoe River, but it dries a lot faster. So even when I did the swab, like the swab took a minute to dry. But most all the other writing, like it hung around for just a little bit, some of the wetter ones, the broads and stuff, but it dried up in a relatively short order. So if you're looking for nice paper that really makes the ink jump, but doesn't have as long of a dry time as Tomoe River, this might be your ticket. So I'm really curious to see these go out, get in people's hands, and see what they think of it, because I kind of dig it. It's only those 3 options we have right now. I don't know if they have a bigger collection or whatever, but if it's popular, we'll look into more options. So that's kind of exciting. And that's also what I have for new stuff right now. Let's do a company update, which will be very brief. All right. Well, I actually don't really have much to update because normally we try and publish a non-Q&A video earlier in the week. I didn't do that on purpose though. We're gonna have 2 videos coming out tomorrow, technically. So as of when this publishes, it'll be Friday. We're gonna have 2 videos coming out on Saturday. And I can't say what they are because they're a new product release and we can't talk about it until Saturday. So look out for those because we normally don't publish on Saturdays, but I have in the past for specific reasons, and I have specific reasons to do that this go around. So look out for those. So sorry if it seems a little dry the rest of the week. I'm sure most of you don't really notice because it's just like whatever shows up in your feed. But if you happen to notice and care, if you happen to go to our channel page and you're like, where is my midweek video? Well, you'll get several end of the week videos instead. But that's pretty much it. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And that's all I really have to update about the company right now. Let's get into Q&A, like the actual questions. Here we go. Question number 1. Sharon Beck says, will the ink in old Pilot or Namiki cartridges, say 10 or 15 years old, I have 2 boxes, make my Pilot Metropolitan pen write dry, hard start, and a bit scratchy? I just cleaned out the pen and the cartridge this time and put Noodler's Black in the cartridge. While cleaning the disposable cartridge, I noticed a flat type disc inside it. Is this normal? Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge with us. Well, you're very welcome. It's funny you should mention this because I kept a whole bunch of Pilot cartridges. These go all the way back to when we first started carrying the brand, which was about 14 years ago. So right in that range that you're looking at. And I did notice that some of the cartridges are a little less full looking than they used to be, which you're like, how did that happen? I don't know all the deep dark science behind it, but I do know that plastic it's not impermeable. It can like sort of off gas or permeate or whatever the thing is over an extended period of time. So I think what's happened is over literally a decade and a half, this is a good example right here. This is normally much fuller than this. I have a Pilot cartridge that is newer that shows you right there where it kind of should be. And I've lost about 1/3 of it maybe over the years. So that is interesting. And I have a bunch of cartridges. Sometimes, I mean, I used to just keep everything. I don't really keep everything anymore. This is just my Pilot container here. It's a, whatever. It's a bag. But I keep a bunch of these for different brands, and it's not just Pilot. This is all different brands. I don't know if all this stuff is quite as old, but I know some of these get older. Let's see here. I got some colors. Okay, so this one I've lost about 1/4 of it, which kind of stinks, because if you're saving your cartridges for like really long periods of time, or if you have like, I still have some LAMY Dark Lilac and petrol cartridges like the originals, but even if I go to use them in the cartridge form, they're not going to look the same as they used to because water is evaporated out of them. So that kind of stinks. So to answer your question, will it affect things? Probably. It'll probably make your pen feel drier. It will probably not write as well. Because as water evaporates out of it, you're left with more of the dye behind, and it's a higher concentration. And there's some, lubricants and stuff in there, surfactants and whatnot. Oh boy, look at this. So I had this mixable color one, which goes back a few years. These suckers are like, some of these are like almost half empty. That's kind of crazy, right? So yeah, if I go popping these things in, I mean, these are unopened. If I go popping these things in, they're going to definitely look different. They're probably going to be darker, more saturated, not flow as well, as they typically would be if they were new. I've always advised people, if you have them, I mean, really, if they're unopened, you shouldn't have any exposure to like the environment per se. So if you wanted to, if you were like really wanting to use those old cartridges, what I would recommend is puncture the cartridge, pull it back out, and then just syringe in a little bit of distilled water in there to get it back to where it looks full again, kind of shake it up, and that should basically reconstitute it back to what it was in the first place. Will it be 100%? Like, I wouldn't, bet my life on it, but it's probably going to perform a lot better than it would if you didn't do that. So I think that might be worth a shot if you did want to reuse those old cartridges, or you can just dump them and, refill them with other ink if you want to. Okay, and then you asked about the little disc in there, and let me see if I have my Pilot. I don't have it right here, but that's okay. I can still show you generally what's going on. But basically, there is a small disc right here that acts as the seal. So when you puncture it into your pen, especially if you look at the Pilot pens, you may notice that. Let me see if I can have one handy. Yeah, I do. Metropolitan. Boom. Oh, it's gonna be kind of hard to see. Yeah, you can't really see it well or at all, but the feed post in there is sort of angled. It's like got a slant to it because it's meant to essentially puncture like one side because it's got that disc in there. Pilot uses proprietary cartridges, so they can design them however they want. But this is how they've been for a long time. So it's designed so the feed post goes in here and punctures one side of it. And that disc in there that acts as the seal kind of folds back and stays in there. So it's not a problem. Ink flows through it just fine. You just end up with a little disc in your cartridge, and then you use it up and then you toss it. It's not a big deal. But that is what's going on in there. So yes, you'll see that disc in every Pilot cartridge unless you puncture it and like get it out somehow, like hook it out and remove it. You don't need to though. So yeah, that's totally normal. Don't worry about it. So yeah, cool. All right, next question. This is from Michael Duncan, 6287, says, I have an additional cartridge refill question. Y'all are just all about some refilling cartridges, which is fine. Whatever, as long as you're writing with your pens, that's all I'm happy about. If you refill multiple cartridges, how do you seal the ends so they don't leak or plug the feed when inserted? It's a great question. Been asked about this for many, many years and heard a lot of people trying different things, paraffin wax, other types of waxes, mixed success or no success. Problem with any type of wax is it would be tough to not get it in the feed. Also, I don't know if it really holds up, under like a lot of jostling around or in like a hot car or something like that. Like it could melt and then leak everywhere. That would be bad. You want something relatively foolproof. The challenge is any new cartridge that you get, whatever the brand, you have some like LAMY and Pilot where it's like a seal. There's just straight up like a seal that needs to be broken. Those are pretty sturdy. Standard international ones and some others, they've got a little ball in here, which kind of drops down. Same with platinum. There's a platinum cartridge. So when you puncture it, the ball kind of shoves back and goes in there. So, this is like a metal one. This is a plastic ball, but it kind of goes in there and acts sort of like an agitator as you use it. So that's cool, but these are not like practical things that we can do when refilling our cartridges. Like we can't really put the ball back. We can't really unseal it once the seal is broken, or reseal it once the seal is broken. The best trick I've heard, and I wanted to try this today because I've never actually done it, is a hot glue gun. I'm going to heat this up and I'm going to get some hot glue flowing through this thing. Now, I don't hot glue things all the time, but I think it's a relatively straightforward process for these cartridges. So what I'm going to do, I have these 4 cartridges and different brands and different like sizes and stuff like that. So I'm going to puncture all of these and then I'm going to try hot gluing them back. And granted, I won't be able to like test it over time or anything like that, but I'm at least going to show you what happens. And I believe because it's hot glue that it's not going to like clog up your feed or anything like that, because the hot glue, once it dries, is essentially like all sticks to itself. It's not going to be like wax where it kind of like sticks to whatever it is that you're gluing it on. I think that's the theory anyway. But this is the only thing that I've ever heard from people that like kind of works. So I'm going to give that a minute to heat up, and I'll explain to you like what I'm going to do here. I guess I can go ahead and puncture the cartridges. I could like grab one of each pen and then just puncture it, but I didn't feel like getting a bunch of my pens inked up for basically no reason. So I'm going to just puncture it with this little Allen wrench that I have. So 1/16 inch Allen wrench, in case you're, or hex wrench as it's known. So I'm just going to pop. So there's my standard international cartridge. Leave that standing up for a hot sec. Then we'll do the platinum, because that one's got a nice little ball in there. I hope I'm not going to like get ink all over myself. Yep, there we go. I just got ink on my fingers. I was like, as I break the seal and get that ball down in there, how is it not going to just jump back up and get all over my fingers? And then as I was having that thought, it did exactly that. So, you know, in retrospect, not the brightest thing I could have done, but at least I caught it with my hand. I had that cognizance. And then the Pilot one, I'm just going to kind of push down on one side of it. There you go. So there's a little disc. You can see it in there. Yeah, just kind of like rotated. It's like a little frisbee in there. So it's hard to see because there's ink in the way, obviously, but it's there. The disc is there. It just kind of like rotated as I pushed it down. So we're going to set that one aside. I'm hoping these things won't leak. And then the last one I have LAMY. Puncture that. Okay. Yeah, I got ink everywhere. But you know what? At least it's on my hands and the paper towel and not in my pens where I've got to clean it all out. So mission accomplished there. I'm just going to have inky fingers the rest of the time, which I am not ashamed of. I think I wear inky fingers like a badge of pride. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So I was just kind of killing time to get the hot glue working again. So let's do it, shall we? Let me just get it kind of going. I think I need a new stick. Now this is like a little mini glue gun because frankly, you know, that's all you need for this type of thing. I want to make sure I got a good little flow. All right, so I'll start with the LAMY. Just gonna kind of glob it in there. See what happens. You know, it's like you don't need like a ton of it, I don't think. I think you just need to sort of cover it in there. There's probably some kind of technique. So we're gonna go with that. Standard International. This one will be pretty straightforward, I think, because it's such a small hole. This would be the one that I'd probably be the, well, I don't know, because it's a small hole, I guess the potential for leaking is not as bad. Or maybe because the hole is smaller, it's less to have to plug up. So we'll set that down. All right, the Pilot one, this is going to be the doozy because it's a big opening. Same thing with Sailor too. So we're going to see, oh yeah, we got a lot. We got a lot going on in here. I'm trying not to like fill it too much. I'm like in between sticks here. I'm trying not to like fill the entire opening because then I think it would be kind of difficult to get it back out. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll check later in on this video after I've answered more questions, and we'll come back to it. And then I'll see how easy it is to take it all out. And then last but not least, we have the platinum. Maybe I'll even try like giving each cartridge a little squeeze. That way we can see how it does. Like how it actually holds up under strain. Okay. There you go. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but you know what? Sometimes you got to make a mess if you want to do the, I don't know. There's probably an expression there that I failed to. The only thing I can think is you need to cut to heal. That's a severance thing. But that's not applicable in this situation. Okay, yeah. So sometimes you gotta, what is it? You gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet. There you go. That's the expression I was thinking of. So I'm gonna let these cure or cool down. Set these aside, and then I don't know if I have the cognizance to go back and edit. I got all these little strings everywhere. What a mess. If I have the cognizance, I'll go back and edit this so that I'll like skip time and then show you these in the end. But in real life, I'm going to set these aside, answer some more questions, and then come back to it. That way these have time to dry. So here we go, set them aside, and then we'll come back later. All right, before I forget, it's been 20, 30 minutes since I put the hot glue on these cartridges. So I think we are fine in terms of them having cooled off and basically doing what they do. Let's see here. I'm going to try to like squeeze, which I realize if I squeeze it and it leaks, it's going to be an epic disaster. I'm squeezing it pretty good. Am I getting any ink leakage? I'm not. Huh. How about that? Okay, so on the LAMY one, oh, I'm squeezing hard. Okay. With some pretty solid squeezing. Oh, there might be a little tiny, oh, there's a little tiny bit, little tiny pinhole there. Okay, so if you squeeze the living daylights out of it, you might see a leak. Or maybe I just didn't glue it well. Let's see if I can remove, like I would not want to take this and shove it onto the back of my pen. I would want to take that. Oh, that popped right out. That popped right out. Okay, and I don't see any residue left. Wow. That worked better than I thought, to be totally honest with you. I see why people have recommended this. Let's try it with some other ones. Standard International. Let's try it with that one because it's, small. So I'm going to squeeze it. Nope, let's take my little pieces there. Standard International. Ugh. Ugh. Squeezing. Oh, I'm squeezing hard. I'm not faking it. I'm really squeezing it hard. And that is held solid. How about that? How easy is it to pop that off if I want to? Wow. It pops off fairly easily, but not if you're squeezing it. Okay. I'm impressed. All right, I'm very curious with the Pilot. How does this one work? I'm going to squeeze it. It's not moving anywhere. This one, I would think of all of them, is not going to leak with squeezing because there's so much glue. There's so much surface area the glue's holding on to. Okay, so that held. And then if I want to scrape it out, this is the one I'm like concerned the most because it does go in there so deep. Now, I don't know that a small hex wrench is the ideal tool for this, but it's what I have right on me here. I would imagine like a letter opener or something would be more ideal. Okay, that pulled right out. I think that worked really well. I don't really see any residue left over from the hot glue. And the platinum, let's see how that does. Oh, I can't squeeze the platinum. Platinum's cartridges are like indestructible. So that's not leaking anywhere. Snap that off. Oh, that's perfect. Well, hot diggity dog. How about that? So this is the best solution I've ever seen for resealing ink cartridges. I would still probably be a little cautious about like just throwing them in a backpack or something like that, or a purse or whatever. I would still try and keep them like inside a baggie or inside something if I was going to carry them around. But hot glue seems to work. All right, question number 3 from MJ Kossel says, I recently got a sample of LAMY petrol ink from y'all in a surprise me set. I like it, but I hear there's a new petrol that's a different color from the old petrol, a la the dark lilac drama. So did I get a sample of the old petrol or the new one? Am I able to buy a bottle of the old petrol? Well, I don't know if it's good or bad news for you. I have news for you. So the original LAMY petrol ink came out with the special edition Safari back in 2017, which was a solid 8 years ago as of this recording. And we sold out of those bottles pretty darn quick when we got them. So there are not a ton of them floating around. So you definitely did not get a sample of the original from us, because you would have had to travel in time and go back 8 years ago, because we have not had that ink in a very long time. So everything we have now and everything basically any retailer is going to have now probably is going to be the new stuff, because there wasn't a ton of the old stuff to begin with. And it's been 8 years. I did, just out of curiosity, because you asked if you could get an old bottle, I went on to eBay and found that you can get a 50 ml bottle of the original petrol ink for $70 plus shipping. I would say it's probably not worth it, because you can get a current 50 ml bottle for $12. So is it worth close to six times the cost? No, definitely not. The colors are not that different from each other. I think the difference was actually greater between the two dark lilacs than they are from the two petrols. I thought they did a pretty decent job of matching them up. And it's a dark teal, it's not the hardest thing to color match, I guess. But, basically when they redid the ink, some of the dye components had changed, different suppliers, stuff like that. They weren't able to do the exact same formula, which is why it had to change. I think there was just so much hype and excitement around dark lilac that's what propelled it into like a situation of drama, a very light amount of drama in the real world. But yes, drama for early last year. These days it wouldn't even make the radar for drama, because there's so much drama happening elsewhere in the world. It wouldn't even come up in your feed. But yes, you can get the new petrol. That is what we have. And that is what you have in your sample. So I hope you like it, because that's what's available. But no, actually it's a good color. I actually like the new petrol a lot. I think it's a great color. So yeah, there you go. All right, Paul Servini says, recently you were asked if you use pens other than fountain pens. Ever since I started using fountain pens a few years ago, the only other pen I use is the Pilot Frixion, because it's erasable and leaves no trace. Which brings me to my question. Is there such a thing as erasable fountain pen ink? Will such a thing ever exist? I'm 67, so I can't wait much longer. That's really funny, but also, yeah, I feel the tension in your voice there. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I actually, the only ballpoint pen that I use with any regularity whatsoever is the Pilot Frixion. Basically, I use that for like notation and sheet music and stuff like that, because I am playing a lot more music. And if I have to take notes and then scratch it out, I don't like pencil or like, something like that, because it doesn't stand out enough from the black ink. So I like using a brighter colored ink because my notes stand out more. Especially if I'm playing live and needing to reference those, it helps me a lot. So I use Pilot Frixion pretty much exclusively for that. That is the ballpoint that I use. And then rollerballs, I use Pilot G2s every now and then, because I like those. Recently I did reacquire, I've done some videos where I haven't had the Pilot Precise, and I recently reacquired some Pilot Precises. Now I like the V7, which is the medium nib. This is I guess it's more called a fine. The V5 is the extra fine. I don't really love the extra fine quite as much, but it's essentially fountain pen ink in a refillable, not refillable, in a rollerball with like a feed system and all that. So that's kind of cool. I never knew that that's how this worked. I knew they looked different, and I don't know, I liked the way they wrote. This is uneducated, unenlightened Brian back in my middle and high school years. I really liked the Pilot Precise. It was like pretty much my go-to pen, and I didn't understand why. And now that I'm into fountain pens, I'm like, oh, duh, of course, because it uses fountain pen ink, which is smoother and it's just a better writing experience. So even before I knew I liked fountain pens, I was liking fountain pens. Anyway, that wasn't your question though. Erasable ink. I don't know if the Frixion is the only ink out there like that exists. It's the only one that I'm aware of. But again, I don't live in the ballpoint world. So correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe somebody knows more if that's the case. But there may be some other kind of erasable thing. I know the Frixion is the only one that works the way that it does. It doesn't actually technically erase the ink. So what it's doing is you are using the end of your Frixion. I don't know if I have one here to show you all. Yeah, I don't think I keep one like at the ready here because I have some of them at home. But anyway, so it's got what looks like an eraser on the end. It's not actually an eraser. It's literally just like, it's kind of like a stylus tip almost, but it's hard and it just creates friction. That's all it does, hence the name. So when you create friction heat, it causes the color in the ink to disappear. The ink is still there though. So if you take a paper that you've done that to and you've erased a whole bunch of stuff and you put it in your freezer or in your, I'm not sure if it does it in your refrigerator. I know it'll do it in the freezer. All the writing will come back and then you have to erase it again. So, I mean, that's kind of neat. If you want to write like secret notes and stuff like that, that's kind of a cool little thing you can do with that ink. But I think that we're not going to see it with fountain pen ink for a couple of reasons. I don't know if it's technically possible. I know Pilot spent a lot of money in R&D to make the Frixion ink. And it's all patented and all that kind of stuff. So the reason you don't really see it outside of Pilot is because they developed that technology. Pilot was, I believe they were an ink company before they were a pen company. And they do sell a ton of ink. So ink is their thing. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. But it's going to be different. Like this is for a ballpoint, it's going to be a thicker, like paste type ink, not a liquid fountain pen ink, which I think, well, for one, the formulation of it's going to be entirely different because I don't know what chemistry is in those Frixion pens, but it's obviously formulated to be in like a paste formula. It would probably have to be different things that happen to it to be in a fountain pen ink. And then would that flow in a fountain pen? Like, I have no idea. I have no idea how that would do. Would that like gunk up your nib? Because your nib is essentially a friction point. As you're writing with it, you're creating friction because of the roughness of the paper, and then using the dragging the tip across it. Whereas the ballpoint pen, it is creating friction, but it's part of that friction process is causing the ink to move around the little ball in the end. With fountain pen, it's not really that way. It creates a little more friction. So I don't know. I don't know how it would do, but also I think more than that, I mean, the technology may exist to do it, but I don't think that it would be worth it for them to do the R&D. Because the fountain pen, globally, maybe there's enough people using fountain pens to justify doing it, but I don't think there's enough people using fountain pens. I mean, comparing fountain pens to ballpoints is like, I don't know what the stats are because I don't know if there's been studies about that. In the US, I'm sure it's like less than 1% of people are using fountain pens, probably even smaller than that. Globally, I don't know. It's probably, it's going to be bigger than that. Because there are some countries that use it a lot more, but I mean, it can't be more than probably 5% of the global, writers are using fountain pens. I would guess. I don't know. It's not going to be everybody. So, yeah, I just don't think there's enough of a market for a subset within a subset. Fountain pens are already a niche, and then a niche within that who would want to erase fountain pen ink. So I think even if the technology is there, I don't think it's going to pay off for a company to develop it. Yeah. And then especially because like, who knows what would have to be formulated in there? Would that work in all types of pens? I have no idea. And then the other side of it too, is that, just from a physics standpoint or a chemistry standpoint, whichever, I don't know which this would fall under, but the absorbency of fountain pen ink. Like fountain pen ink is more of a liquid. It's less viscous, so that's why it flows so great. But it also absorbs more into the paper, which is why it like feathers and bleeds and stuff more than your, gel roller balls and your ballpoints. So what that means is that you are not, with a ballpoint pen, you're going to have the ink on the surface. So that is going to be easier to do like a friction type thing and make erase. Whereas if you have a fountain pen ink and it like soaks into the paper, you could do the friction thing sort of at the top, but I think you would then end up with sort of like a ghostly outline, or like you would end up with like a lightened up version of it, but I don't know that you'd be able to like erase it completely. Unless you like were really rubbing hard and like the heat was enough to get kind of through the paper. So maybe it would make a difference. Maybe it wouldn't make a difference. I don't know. But I think that would be an extra thing to have to consider. So I'm not super optimistic that we're going to see that. I would love to be wrong, but I think that that's probably going to be the case. What is your option? You didn't ask this, but what is your option for making corrections with the fountain pen? I mean, I don't worry about it. I just cross it out and keep going. It's like, whatever. You're seeing that like, hey, I'm an actual human writing this and I make mistakes. So I don't know. Part of that to me is endearing at this point. It's not the 1950s where people are like making moral judgments about you based on your handwriting. These days, it's kind of like people need to be able to read your handwriting, but it's not the way that it used to be. If you're writing with a pen at all, people are like, wow, let alone a fountain pen with ink and all that kind of stuff. People are gonna be amazed anyway. So you don't need to sweat it. But the only thing that I know of is like ink eradicators, which only works with certain colors of ink. And it's really not fountain pen ink either. It's just sort of like a whiteout, and then you're using basically a ballpoint of some kind that's made to look like the like washable inks, kind of that like royal blue color. We've literally never sold ink eradicators here. We get asked about them very rarely. It's more like a school type setting that you would use those. And that's just not our crowd. Or there's some like, correction tape that I've seen people use with some mixed results. So it's not like a whiteout, because they make like whiteout, kind of tape that's like a plasticky kind of tape. That stuff doesn't work with fountain pens, but there's like a paper correction tape that, has, I couldn't name you a brand or anything like that, but I believe that there's something like that you can sort of tape on, and it's more paper-like. It's still not going to look exactly like it would on the page, but maybe there's something like that to explore. I don't know, but either way, that's all I know. I've tapped my knowledge out, and I'm ready for the next question, so let's do it. All right, next question, number 5. Forgive me if I butcher your name. Ella Ricau 1230 says, I absolutely love anything dragon themed, and of course I had to get Noodler's Dragon's Fire. Since then, I've been on a quest, play on words, to see the coolest dragon-themed fountain pen items out there besides your guys' adorable stickers and washi tape. What other dragon themes, pens, ink, etc. do you guys have? So, truth be told, I sort of cheated on this. I just went to our website and I typed in dragon in the search bar and saw everything that came up. So maybe this won't be an exhaustive list, but it'll be everything that has anything dragon related in the name. So I do have some things that I can point out. And I've created a link for that as well in the video description. So if you want to just click on that, you can, or you can just go to our site and type in dragon and you'll come up with the same search result. So ink-wise, you mentioned Noodler's Dragon's Fire. That's cool. That's a good one. One of my favorite all-time inks is Diamine Red Dragon. I love that color. It's just a great deep red ink. There's Robert Oster's Dragon's Night, which is a blue ink that doesn't look anything like Dragon's Fire or Red Dragon. And then you have Colorverse Blue Dragon. There's 4 different variants on that with different shimmers and stuff. Again, totally different looking. Kind of falls more into like the Robert Oster type category with blues. But I don't know, blue dragons are cool. If I was going to make a dragon, I'd make a blue dragon. We do have the Goulet stickers. Of course, you mentioned those. We have 4 of them, I think, at the moment with Dragon, Coffee Dragon, Pen Horde, Grail Pen, and Tea Dragon. All cute little dragon themes. And then we do have the washi tape with the dragons on it. Pen-wise, we had the Jinhao 999 Dragon, which is kind of a beast of a pen, super heavy, but it definitely looks like it's got dragons on it, like 3-dimensional dragons with like ruby eyes. Not real rubies, but they look like rubies. The Banu Talisman, Dragon's Blood. not explicitly dragon. It's more in the name, but it's green and it's got like red, glitter stuff in it, which is kind of cool. The Benu Euphoria limited edition. So they did two dragons. One of them we sold out like immediately, so I won't even mention it. We do have the Glassog left, which is like the yellowish kind of one that looks like fire, and then it's got a hand-painted dragon on it. So that's kind of cool. I don't know how long that one's going to be around. Probably not too long. We have a Monte Grappa Regal Year of the Dragon. Got a really good deal on that right now because we are not going to be carrying Monte Grappa anymore. They made if you hadn't heard, they made a decision to not sell through retailers anymore. They're just going to sell direct. So that means that all the Monte Grappas we have are like, okay, this is all we're going to get. Which is, too bad because I really love Monte Grappa, but there's just a decision on their part to do that. Which is totally fine. I think they're going to still like do the warranties and stuff like that though. So, if you buy a new pen, you can still reach out to them. They'll still do warranty support for anything that was sold through, an authorized retailer like us. But anyway, so that one's kind of cool. It's more like it's got a dragon on the nib, but it's more like the scale type pattern in the material. It looks really cool, but it's also pretty expensive. You're over $1,000 on that. There's a lot of good Japanese stuff, especially Makie, that has dragon themes to it. A couple right now. We have the Namiki Nippon Art Cumulus Dragon, which is okay. It's more of like a kind of like a cartoony looking sort of dragon. But then there's like the super high-end Namiki Emperor Dragon, which is, in the 5 figures, which looks amazing, but, it is definitely dragon. We got Retro 51, our exclusive Fire and Dice, which has a dragon on it, which is pretty cool looking. And ST DuPont has a Game of Thrones pens. It's got some dragon themes to it as well. So, dragons are definitely like a thing, like especially on the Japanese pens, there's a lot because dragon's like a big deal in Japan and Japanese lore. So, that's a pretty current list of a lot of what we have. Will we do more dragon things in the future? Probably, because people like dragons and we like dragons and, all that. And I got a fun fact about dragons, so hang till the end and you'll get to get some fun dragon facts. And that's about all I got. All right, and now the question that you've all been waiting for, since you don't hear enough about tariffs already. Paul Drexel asked, why not have a pre-tariff sale to clear out existing stock that you purchased prior to the tariffs? These could be at your current prices, but note what the current advised tariff rate is. I've seen some other retailers start to do this. This makes a lot of sense if you're direct sourcing and then like having to pay the tariffs yourself directly, because then you know exactly what the tariff is, at least by the time you've had to pay it. And then also you know exactly what your stock is before and after, all that kind of stuff. What complicates it for us, we've talked about doing something like that. There's a couple of things that complicate it for us doing it that way. Number one is that we're not directly importing a lot of our products. There are US distributors for a lot of the global pen brands. And that's for a few different reasons, but a couple of them has to do with like, they have contracts for consistency of like payment because you have currency fluctuations that happen all the time, especially right now. And then, tariffs and things like that. So typically, you don't want things to be wildly changing prices. So distributors not only logistically help to make it so that every single retailer trying to carry something is not having to import directly, because that would be just a nightmare, especially if you're a smaller, like stationary store that's not stocking a whole ton of everything. US distributors make a lot of sense. But that is, they absorb a lot of that stuff. So they're going to be seeing those tariffs happen for their stuff. We do import a few things directly ourselves, things that we source out, but it's not the majority of our products. So we are kind of a layer removed from a lot of that, which in some ways works to our advantage because, there'll be a delay of time because there's usually stock that the distributors will have. We have our own stock. We'll go to restock. So it's like, particularly right now when tariffs are changing a lot, it's not like our price is like swinging drastically. I know I've been really keeping in touch with a lot of other e-commerce store owners because I'm in some networking groups and stuff for that purpose, who are people that they've had to source stuff directly, especially from like China or whatever. And it's like they have whatever their You know, they sell like baby clothes or something like that, and they have to source the stuff out, and they've had to order up for their big like spring or summer or whatever seasonality thing, and it's like it's already on the water and it comes in and they have to pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars in tariffs, you know, and it's like threatening the existence of their business. Like that's terrifying, to be honest, as a business owner. And it's a buzz within the small business community, because, you know, whatever you feel about the tariffs, like the big picture, when the stuff hits the docks and it needs to be unloaded and tariffs get charged, it's the business that imported it that has to pay it. So that kind of, you know, has the most immediate impact. So eventually it all gets passed on to the consumers because no business can absorb these level of tariffs. But anyway, so yeah, that's what's going on there. I'm not trying to get all political and stuff like that. There's enough of that divisiveness out there, but just from an economic standpoint, tariffs are not good for small businesses, especially in the short term. So let's see here. In particular, these tariffs have had a lack of consistency and predictability. So for us, in terms of like having a tariff sale, it's hard to say because I don't know what the tariffs are actually going to be. Say I was planning a sale, you know, initially when they were announced on April 2nd. Well, then they change days later. So it's like, okay, so I make all these plans and then it changes. And, you know, it just makes it so that it would be really difficult to actually plan and execute something because it could very well change. And there's negotiations happening and all this kind of stuff. So they could increase, they could decrease, who knows? So that's kind of frustrating for us as trying to run a business. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so another factor is we source from about 60 different suppliers of ours, and we have 6,000 SKUs. You know, so it's one thing if you have a small business or something like that, you know, they might have 10 or 12 different products and they're importing them, you know, directly and, you know, selling them. They're going to be very, very impacted and very much on the like front edge of the effect of all these tariffs and stuff like that. Fountain pen industry is long established. There's an established supply chain with some absorbency in there to absorb like shocks and changes and stuff like that. So that's why you're not seeing as drastic of a thing happening right now. But if these tariffs stay in place, especially the big ones that go up, you know, the ones that are on like a 90-day pause right now, you know, we've still got another 2.5 months or so of that. If it unpauses, then you're going to see some stuff hit, because those are the ones that are really going to affect a lot of fountain pen products. But who knows? That could go away or it could triple tomorrow. I have no idea. I don't know what world we're living in right now. So all that to say, we're probably not going to be able to run one big like tariff sale. It's just not likely for us because it's such a complex supply chain for us. And we don't really know the direct impact that a lot of these tariffs might have, especially if it's anything that comes from a distributor. So, you know, fountain pens are not commodities. They can't just be sourced from somewhere else. You know, most of the brands that make these pens have been around for decades, if not over a century. And they just like, even if you tried to move them, it's not happening, you know? So, I think part of the bigger issue, not just pricing we're going to have, is stock inconsistency. If this continues on like it is, I think it'll end up being sort of like COVID, where you had a lot of, you know, delays in getting product and stuff like that. The shipping container prices are going to be all over the place because I think there's some additional tariffs tacked onto those, or different fees tacked on ships that are made in China. I don't know. It's honestly exhausting to keep up with it all. And I don't want you all to have to think about that very much. That's why you buy from a company that spends their time thinking about these kind of things. But yeah, so at the end of the day, it's all just so complex that it doesn't really, I mean, we could just run a sale and call it a pre-tariff sale, but I wouldn't be able to accurately tell you what the tariff is going to be on a given product, because fountain pens come from all over the place and there's so many different things, so many different factors involved. And then by the time we plan it, it would probably change. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So, you know, it's very likely if this continues that we will see price increases. We haven't seen a lot yet, so that's remained good. So if this stuff gets negotiated or repealed or whatever, then okay, that would be cool, because we would not have a huge shock to the system in the fountain pen world. But of course, all bets are off because we are in uncharted waters here. So hopefully I communicated that well enough without, you know, getting anybody too riled up, because, you know, look, it's a crazy situation for all of us. I have my opinions and I'm like screaming inside my head a lot of the time with what's going on, but I still hold to the fact that like fountain pens are meant to be like a safe haven for all of us. Like it's meant to be something that we enjoy. We're not going to continue to get all like riled up and stuff like that, because it's just so much of that everywhere. There's a million different sources you could read to get all amped up. No matter what stance you take on any given issue, you can get amped up plenty. I don't want to talk about fountain pens. So as far as tariffs go, you know, it's going to impact everything, you know, and we sell something, so it will impact us, but not directly, not immediately. So that's kind of encouraging. But you know, it's going to be really tough to communicate out when it will impact, because it'll probably be like last minute that we'll find out about any actual changes happening. But then we'll adjust and, you know, try and communicate out where we can. Another challenge we have is like we can't communicate directly in one place. We have our email, which that is a good way if you want direct communication from us about things. Email is good, but even like on our social media platforms, the way the algorithms are in your For You pages and stuff like that, even if you subscribe to us, there's no guarantee you're going to see what we post, especially like in a timely manner. It's pretty frustrating. Like 1 to 3% of our subscribership will actually get served up our content. Isn't that crazy? It's like goes into an algorithm with so many different factors. So yeah, that also makes it difficult to communicate this kind of stuff. So we can post on Instagram, we can post on all these places, but you likely won't see it unless you go looking for it. So what are you gonna do? Anyway, that's all I got. I'm skipping the pen spotlight this week. Let's get right into my adventures, shall we? All right, now we've got all the work out of the way. Let's talk about my adventures, shall we? I've been trying to not die from pollen overdose. It's been so bad here in Richmond. Like on like whatever various allergy apps or whatever that people use, it's like there's a rating out of 12. It was like 11.8 this weekend. It was pretty rough. I think that's why I'm kind of feeling just gross. But didn't stop me from doing stuff, you know, still had to do some yard work. Also we have a picnic table that's like hasn't been serviced in 8 years. It wasn't even new. It was like here when we moved in. And I was like, it's like a wooden picnic table. And I was like, we could probably do that. And I used to clean and seal wood all the time. That's how I paid my way through school, was cleaning and sealing decks, and fences and stuff like that. So I'm very experienced in that way. So I was like, that would clean up pretty nice. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna clean it, seal it, and then, you know, we've got basically a brand new picnic table, but it needed to be cleaned. So it looked pretty disgusting. But I cleaned it and now it looks pretty great. But then I'm just gonna seal it with an opaque sealer anyway. So it doesn't really matter how it looks actually, but I wanted to get a good bond. And so, yeah, that's what I've been working on. So I did that this weekend. So fun to get the power washer out, get to use some chemicals, which, by the way, if you're ever stripping like old gray wood, like an old deck or something like that, using like a wood and finish stripper, is pretty good. You can usually get it in like the outdoors section, like near the paints and stuff like that at like a home center. So yeah, it's either called like wood stripper or finish stripper or something like that. Something made for outdoors. It usually has a picture of a deck on it. And then you want to use a wood conditioner is usually what it's called. So basically, if you are using a wood stripper, it's a highly, highly basic solution. You're going to be up there in like probably a 13 on the you know, pH scale, maybe even higher. That stuff is pretty gnarly. You can get burned pretty bad, and I have. So wear gloves and respirator and all that kind of stuff if you are going to be spraying that everywhere. But boy, does it work well for stripping away a bunch of old garbage off your deck. And then if you are going to be doing that, it's sort of like how you have shampoo and conditioner. You know, one's a base and one's acidic. It balances each other out, kind of neutralizes it. So a wood conditioner, you know, it's usually oxalic acid is the active ingredient in that. And that will neutralize the heavy base of the stripper. And it will also brighten up the color of the wood too. So especially if you're going to be stripping it down to bare wood and then recoating it with something that's not opaque, that is ideal to use a wood conditioner like that. And that stuff's a little gentler, but still not great to breathe in. So respirator gloves, all that kind of stuff. But I did both of those on this picnic table and it looks awesome. So there you go. You didn't know that I could have made that my fun fact today. Daggone it. Oh, well, I already prepped a different one. So, well, there you go. You get some wood conditioning advice. Boy, I cannot even tell you how many times I've done that. I mean, not only did I do it during school, but then I did it after school. I worked with my father. We had a power washing business for a number of years. For those of you who know our origin story, it's because I was in the power washing business and it was seasonal that I started turning pens, and then that turned into Goulet Pen Company, and here we are. So you could argue that Goulet Pen Company wouldn't exist without deck cleaning and sealing. But anyway, so that's been fun. I like keeping my skills up a little bit. If you're like, why, Brian, are you spending your time, especially right now, stripping and cleaning a picnic table? Is that really the best use of your time as a CEO? No, it's not, but I did it on my spare time at home, and I like working. I just like doing work. So for me, it was a fun activity, I guess. And it was something that I could do for the team, and they would notice it and appreciate it. Like it's something I can do to serve them. So did that. Also, I'm in the middle of doing this project, assisting with this project, I should say. So Ellie and her class, they've got to build a roller coaster, like, 3 feet tall, kind of whatever design. They've been working on it in class. I've been told about it. I don't really know, but she asked me if I could build something out of wood. Basically, they're making a roller coaster that's like a tree. So she needed like basically a 3 foot tall tube of wood. And then they're going to put like brushed tree leaves and stuff on top of it. That can be like the anchor for their little roller coaster. It's going to be like a marble, that rolls through. Sounds pretty awesome, actually. But she was like, yeah, we can't really use power tools on our own. So can you help us? And so I was like, of course, I would love to do that. So did that, did some geometry to figure out some of the angles. Ended up using red cedar because, for one, it smells kind of cool, but it's also pretty light. So, they're going to have to carry this thing. So that's a thing. And then, so I'm having to do that. I was going to originally make it out of a solid log, and I was like, this thing has to be 3 feet long. And once she said it needed to be hollow, I was like, oh, this is going to be really hard to make a 3 foot long, 6-inch diameter, hollow piece of wood. I was like, this is going to take me forever if I can even do it. So I was like, no, I should just glue up, a bunch of wood staves and make a hollow tube. And then I can just turn down like the edges, so that's what I'm doing. I'm like mid-process on that. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out. It's going to be so obvious that a parent helped with this project. So I asked her repeatedly. I was like, it is okay with your teacher, because I'm not doing the whole project. I'm literally just helping with this one part. I was like, it's okay with your teacher that like I'm very obviously helping tremendously with this portion. And she was like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, okay, see how it goes. So yeah, hope she does well on that project. I had one project that, my parents helped me with quite a bit. I was in third grade, and we were building volcano so that we could do the like baking soda and vinegar thing and like make the volcano it spills over a volcano. Well, I don't know. I was like interested in whatever, but my parents, for whatever reason, just like really got excited to help me. So it was like, I definitely helped, but like they led the charge on a lot of it. And I ended up with like this massive volcano that was like 2 feet tall, and it was like way bigger than anybody else's. So, all the kids like had their baking soda and vinegar stuff, and they did theirs, and everybody got their grades and stuff. And then everybody wanted to put theirs in mine, because like we had put like little trees and little people, we went to like the craft store or whatever and got like little people and stuff like that. It looked pretty cool. I don't know if we have any pictures of it though. This would have been 1993 or something like that. So I don't know, but I have a distinct memory of doing that with my parents, and that was pretty fun. But also keep that in mind. It's like, I didn't get in trouble or anything, it's like, it was fine, but because his parents were, meant to assist. But yeah, so anyway, that was kind of fun. But it's like, I've really tried hard never to like do projects for my kids. I'm like, what are you learning? But this one, she got me woodworking. So anyway, I'm in the middle of doing that as well, which which is also probably not helping my stuff because I chose red cedar, but then also I realized like, oh yeah, red cedar is like a sensitizer wood as well. I have dust collection, I have all that kind of stuff, but I was like, probably not the best choice when I've got all the pollen and stuff already. But anyway, I'm fine so far. And then last thing is, you know, I'm taking some drum kit lessons. I have my second lesson this week, which is good. But it's so funny because it's like going to my teacher because like usually they're teaching kids who are like maybe not that motivated, but I'm coming in and I'm like, all right, give me as many like drills and fundamentals as possible. Because this is the, I think, 11th instrument that I've learned. So it's like, I know the best way to get up to speed is to drill and drill and drill and do it to where it becomes second nature. And then you can play the fun songs and then you can do the stuff, but you got to get the core stuff down. And so it's like, I know that. I do that with saxophone. I did with all these things. I'm just like playing scales and drills and stuff over and over again. So I went to my teacher and I was like, all right, give me some drills, give me some fundamentals. And he was like, oh, well, you want to do that? I got as much of that as you want. So give me a whole bunch of stuff to work on. And it's really fun. It's crazy making because it's like all the drills for learning a drum kit is like basically how to make what feels completely unnatural feel natural. Because you're not used to operating independently with 4 different limbs in time with each other. So like the drills will be different things that mix it up and then it'll change it up. So it's the opposite. And, you know, it's like I practice it and I'm like, I keep trying to do this. It's like, I need to do this on the kick with my right foot, but I keep doing my right hand on the hi-hat instead. It's like, shoot, you know, but you practice it enough times and then it becomes second nature. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is pretty rad. But I think about my favorite expression that I heard. This comes more to like music performance, but it works for practicing too. So it says, you don't practice until you can get it right. You practice until you can't do it wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Maybe I messed up a word here and there, but yeah, you don't practice until you can do it right. You practice until you can't do it wrong. That's what it is. So I keep that in mind. I'm a practicer. I practiced a lot when I was learning my instruments growing up and I still do it now, but I enjoy it. So anyway, that's pretty much it for me. We'll see how I survive the week, but yeah, it's having a good time, living life, you know? So yeah, just want to thank you for watching. You know, leave me some feedback, continue to ask questions, you know, give me ideas for other videos and stuff too. I've got another, I will say I shot a yellow ink showdown, so that's coming, but it might be a week or two before it gets out because we got a whole schedule going on and actually worked a little ahead, which is kind of fun. So yeah, I would love to know any other ink showdowns or any other video ideas you have. Keep them coming because I like making stuff. Check out gouletpens.com. Of course, you can get all your fountain pen stuff there. And then I've got my fun fact about dragons. So let me take a sip of water and then I'll tell you what's going on there. I'm out of water. Darn it. Okay. Well, dragons. Okay, so there are 7 types of dragons in real life. I don't know if this is like super exhaustive. I looked in, it was a Discovery Channel website, so somewhat legit, but whatever. There are 7 types of dragons in real life. Komodo dragons, the leafy sea dragon, which looks crazy. Google that. Bearded dragon, you know, like the lizard. I had a friend who had a bearded dragon growing up, and they would feed him crickets, and that was just the coolest thing to watch as like a preteen boy. The blue dragon sea slug, which is kind of what it sounds like, but it actually looks pretty cool because it's blue. Of course I would like it. And then flying dragons, also known as Draco lizards. They look pretty cool. They're like flying squirrels, but lizards. The Chinese water dragon and the dragon millipede, which just looks weird. It's called dragon, but it's really not a dragon at all. Anyway, I was looking those up and I was like, well, Komodo dragons are the ones that I've heard of the most. And then I just like found some fun facts they had on there about Komodo dragons. And I was like, this is insane. These things are wild. So Komodo dragons can reach 10 feet long and 300 pounds. That's horrifying. That like, that's really heavy. And they're super strong and fast too. So Komodo dragon mothers can fertilize their own eggs and give virgin births, which is wild. That's kind of crazy. And then they protect the eggs at their nest for 6 months. And then once the eggs hatch, they abandon it and they're left to fend for themselves. And apparently, adult cannibalizing the younger Komodo dragons is a part of their process for weeding out the weak ones. So you're born and then it's like, huh, okay, you're out here in the real world. Okay, your own family is going to try to eat you now. So if you're strong enough, then you can survive. And if not, you become food for your family. That's just so crazy to me. But anyway, so that's a fun little facts about Komodo dragons. They're fascinating creatures, to be honest with you. There's more that I could have gone into, but I cut myself off. But that's my fun fact for the week about Komodo dragons. So hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, anyway, I enjoyed doing Q&A this week, despite my borderline illness. I'm hoping I'll be perfectly fine for next week. But I hope you enjoy this week. I hope you enjoy your life, to be honest with you. Yeah, and just want to thank you for that. So thanks for watching, and right on.